right, what is up? Welcome back to the Aspiring Adult Podcast. This is your host, Sarah Smiles, and this week we are continuing with our Becoming series, which is a series about people who have founded their own businesses or fostered passion projects. So this week we have on one of my old classmates and good friends, Lexi, and she's the host of a podcast called My Best Friends and Engineer. You can follow My Best Friends and Engineer on Instagram at My Best Friends and Engineer. You can also follow Lexi at Engineer Lexi on Instagram as well. They also have a Facebook page, a TikTok, and then if you want to get more into detail, you can also start following Lexi's career page, which is called On a Career. And that is ENCAREER on Instagram as well. So now let's meet Lexi, talk about how she became the host of a podcast.
So I'm like, how do I even do an intro? So I am Lexi. I graduated from Miami University in 2020 with a chemical engineering degree. And I currently work as a validation engineer in the medical device and pharmaceutical industry. And I host a podcast, which we'll get into.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh my gosh.
How
Look
are
who it
you?
is.
Look
I
who it
am
is.
just dandy. Just made some dinner. It was like a beautiful day in Boston today. So we went out for drinks after work and it felt like summer. It was
A
such a
good
good day.
day. Just a good
Yeah.
day overall. Yeah, same here. It was so nice. So good. Okay, you're still in Boston, same apartment.
Same apartment.
Love it.
Yeah, same apartment, but new job. I think when I talked to you last, I was working for that plumbing company startup.
Yes, you
And
were
then,
like you had everything. You were doing everything. You're like, I have to go get my boss's laundry. I was like, wait, what are you doing? It's like,
yeah,
wait,
pretty
what?
much. No, pretty much. Which also horrifying. Um, I don't know why this happened to me, but you know how like people randomly pop up on your Snapchat and they're like,
Yeah.
so and so has just joined Snapchat or add so and so on Snapchat. My boss's name came up. It was a push notification. It wasn't just
Hmm.
in the app, it was a push notification. And if that wasn't bad enough, I ignored it. I cleared it. I was like, nope, don't want to see that again. It pushed again. I got it twice. And then the
Yeah.
next day, I got on TikTok and I was like just scrolling through and I was like, oh, you might know so and so. I'm like,
The
why?
worst. The
Again, why?
worst.
Hello? Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah. On
is my
TikTok, I'm
health
like,
animal?
okay, contacts off. I'm like, no, no phone number. I was like, I don't want anyone to see me. It's like I don't want anyone to know me. I that same thing happened to me, but it was like the freshman year, like random people you meet from college. So it's like Eric from Fiji has just joined Snapchat.
Yes.
I said, oh, awesome for him, but I'm gonna not, not do any awkward things. But I feel that.
No, it is. I don't know how I signed up for it. I literally have no idea how my contacts synced. I think whenever I must have signed up for Snapchat, so probably, I don't know, eighth grade, I must
Yeah.
have synced my phone number because I was like, oh, how could this possibly go awry?
Yep. You're
It
like, I
has
need to
led
know
me
what
awry.
what everyone is doing. I was like, I want everyone from middle school. No. I'm always tempted to like make a new account, but then I'm like all the memories I had, and then I'm also like,
Ugh,
are the memories that good though?
no.
I'm like, I see like Miami pops up. I'm like, was that a good night? Or do I need to see that again?
We're very concerned because we cannot differentiate the two. We have no idea if it was a good night or what we really
Just
remembered.
neutral, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. We're like, yeah, there's a lot that kind of come up nowadays. It'll be like 1 year ago, me at my last job, and I was like miserable. And then 4 years ago was the next one, and it's like me at Brick dancing with a hot dog. And I'm like, what?
you're like the happiest I've ever been, and then you're like, okay, real life.
Stark contrast. It gets very dark and bleak very fast.
But okay, so new job.
I am now actually working in Boston, which is super
Okay.
exciting. With the new job, I'm working at a startup, like a real startup where other people work and there's a lot of collaboration. People work on things together. It's a team
Where
environment.
other people work, that made me where other people work. There are other
Yeah,
people.
there are other people that are also my age, which is huge. And
Definitely.
honestly, like when you visited versus my current day life, it feels like a complete 180. It does not feel like I'm living the same life. It does not feel like I'm in the same city. It's absolutely kind of bananas the way that my life has just completely shifted.
Definitely. And how much work can have, like how much of an impact work can have. Which is
Yeah,
kind of crazy. You're in a bad situation and you're like, okay, this affects and flows over into my real life, which is
exactly.
terrible.
Oh, 100%. I was really concerned for a minute. I was like, wow, so how can I get my way out of this? And it really like caused me to have a lot of internal conflict.
Definitely. I'm happy to hear things are better.
Honestly, like around the realm of careers, because that's what your podcast is about. How did you pick that as a topic for My Best Friend's an Engineer?
I've always wanted to make something, and it was always with Libby. We were always talking in college, like, what can we invent? What business idea can we talk about? We were literally, I remember, this is one of like the moments, you have those moments that are just so clear. You're like, I remember this, like it was yesterday. It was
Mm-hmm.
the night before a biochem exam. I just significantly remember this. We were laying on her floor in her room. We lived together junior year. And we were just brainstorming. I was like, okay, I have a biochem test in 8 hours, but like this is so much more fun. I'm like, screw this. Like we were just studying, like I was studying. And I was like, okay, we got to get out of the rat race. I was like, we need like a little business idea. I was like, we need something. I was like, we're not even in the rat race. And we're
Mm-hmm.
already talking about that. So I feel like this was always something that we always talked about. And we had a little double date. We went to a very nice winery in Lake Geneva. I don't know what our boyfriends were talking about, but of course we were just talking about the topic again of what can we do? I mean, she had created a platform already. I think she had 10,000 Instagram followers, and her story kind of started with her apartment search and kind of life post grad, and then it transitioned into women in STEM content, which we noticed that there was a lack of, and she was filling that gap. She was throwing out all the content, and we were just kind of talking, and I don't know how it came up, but we started talking about podcasts. And I think she made a comment and she's like, let's start a podcast together. And I was like, okay, yeah, yeah. We have the bottle of wine. I'm like feeling ambitious. I've always wanted to start something. And I was like, yeah, this is a good idea. Knowing in the back of my head, I don't listen to podcasts. I don't like to listen to myself talk too much. Usually I kind of black that out. Like, I don't, it's just not my thing usually. And so the next morning I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to back out. But she had already posted on all of her stories. She was like, okay, we're starting this podcast, you know, keep a watch, keep an eye out for this. And it was just related to women in STEM just because that was the content she was kind of promoting.
Mm-hmm.
And additionally, I just kind of wanted to not just talk about life because there are so many life podcasts, and I don't know, I just didn't think I had too much value to add there. I wanted something that was kind of, it just added more value. Just, I've always been interested in career stuff, and that's kind of how we just went from there. We're like, okay, women in STEM, let's see what's out there. After doing all of our market research, was not too much because there wasn't much content out there in general. We were listening to these podcasts that were so scripted. And I was like, okay, this is, good content. I just get bored of listening to that.
Mm-hmm.
So what better thing to talk about STEM life, career stuff with your best friend and make it a little bit more fun? And we're like, okay, let's try it. Let's see what people are interested in. Let's have these different guests on. And I'm surprised people are still interested in actually listening and getting value out of what we, throw out there. So that's kind of how it started and kind of the topic, just kind of just naturally. I'm like, what can we add? We're engineers. Let's start with that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I've listened to quite a few episodes, and it's honestly remarkable how much that you can track your progress of the episodes and how much you and Libby interact with one another and how much you interact with the guests. And it's honestly amazing because you've posted also every single week. And
Yes.
being a podcaster, like I know what goes into that. And y'all are also on all the social medias, posting on like Facebook groups. So how do you manage all of that in addition to also managing your full-time job? Because this is low-key kind of a full-time job in and of itself.
Definitely. I was going to say props to you because it helps doing this with someone else so much. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, maybe that's just me, but I would have never probably entered this content sphere without Libby, pushing me and encouraging me. But so we kind of split the work. So she edits everything. I won't take any credit for that. She edits the podcast and is so good at it. And then we kind of just split up the reels, split up reaching out, and just kind of planning the logistics behind things. And I think, she probably will say the editing takes a long time. I think the making content part is very difficult. So, we started just trying to create systems. Like we'll have strategy meetings every 2 weeks, which is kind of good to like reignite the, okay, let's get motivated, let's do this. Like let's start getting consistent with this. And then we kind of just say, okay, we'll each do two a week. That's doable. Sometimes if I have more time, we'll make a little bit more. If we find a good Canva template, we'll say, oh my God, let's throw that on there.
Yep.
So it's kind of trying to get those minimums. And then if we have more time, just putting in a little bit more effort that week into making that content. You're so consistent as well. It's just, yeah.
Not
So
nearly as consistent. There are definitely, I wish that I had someone, maybe I should schedule some time with my dad, but schedule strategy meetings. That's a genius idea because there are times I'm like feeling very motivated to post on social media. And it's mostly like when people are engaging with my stuff. And
yes,
that
yeah,
being
that's
like,
always nice.
yeah,
You're like,
people
oh my God, I'll do this for another day.
exactly. You're just like, oh, you want more content? I can do that for you. But then if you don't hear anything for days or weeks at a time, you're kind of just like, why am I doing this? So I feel like strategy would definitely help in the sense of, okay, how do we get structured? How do we get organized? What do we need to tackle? So in those strategy meetings, what are you kind of looking at in terms of, okay, here's what content that we have, and this is the reaction or traction that we got from it, and then additionally, like, where are we looking to go, or how do those meetings typically look?
It kind of does look like that. Like we look at what has done well. We've noticed
Mm-hmm.
that timely things. So for example, we just recorded an episode about post grad. It's May, post grad time. We did actually one that did really well. It was sorority rush as a STEM major. That one was fun. And it was during the Bama Rush TikTok and all that stuff. So we kind
Genius.
of look at, yeah, we kind of look at stuff like that. And then we kind of each bring our own ideas. So, which is one thing that I really love about having two people doing this. So she has a different perspective. She's been doing this for longer. She has a larger platform. I have my opinions, bringing different perspectives, but it's just fun to talk about things and say, okay, what is your point of view or what should we focus on? And we just have different opinions, which is just fun because she does different research. I do whatever research I do or I pick up on things. So we kind of bring our own ideas. One thing I like is the events when we plan events. I think again, like I said, it kind of just brings everything into perspective. We're
Mm-hmm.
doing this for fun. We're doing this just to build a community, look at what we've done so far. Again, kind of that motivating factor.
Yeah, definitely. And with those like strategy meetings, planning out what your content's going to look like, how do you decide, in addition to like timely matters, who you're going to have on? Because you have a lot of guests on, and my guests are all people I've known, people I met. And yours, at least from what it seems like on my side, are people that are virtually strangers. How do you reach out, make that
Yes.
connection, and ask them to come on the show?
Yeah, well, Libby had a big part in that. So she, like I said, she's been doing it longer. So she kind of was following a lot of these other STEM creators longer than I have.
Mm-hmm.
So we would just reach out, and everyone was just so willing to come on and talk. And it was so intimidating at first because you see all these people, and you're like NASA engineer. You're like, okay, X amount of followers, and you're like, hi, I'm Lexi. Libby, motivated me to start posting content after a wine night. It's just so funny, and it's like a bit intimidating,
Mm-hmm.
talking to these people, but they essentially just have the same goal. They want to talk about STEM, talk about the fun sides of STEM. I know that you didn't like engineering as much, but it's important to talk about these different experiences, in my opinion. So just reaching out, honestly, everyone is just so willing.
Yeah, that's honestly the huge part. I don't think there's been a single person that I've reached out to that has said no, like straight up, that they don't want to be on the podcast. And these people don't have like some sort of platform agenda that they're working towards. They're just trying to be helpful. So I think that really kind of a different and unique feeling because especially during college, I feel like it's a very competitive environment. People are a lot less willing to like go out on a limb for you. Whereas in this environment, like in the creator sphere, I don't even know what you want to call that. Maybe I just coined
Yeah,
that term, creator sphere.
I like it.
Um, you have people that want to help you and want to see you succeed. It is just a really unique community because although people that, again, a lot of my guests aren't in the creative sphere, but they want to see you do well. They want to see you succeed. They want to help you out. And it's really a very heartwarming feeling.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's awesome because every conversation we have, I learn something new. It's kind of interesting how far can you deep dive or like pick apart STEM? An
Mm-hmm.
engineer, mechanical engineer, okay. Essentially, before I started this, I would think they do one thing or they do a few things. And then you talk to these people and you learn about their day to days. And I'm like, wow, this is actually really interesting. I'm really glad we're talking about this because I never would have known. There's one, it's a payload engineer. So it's now she doesn't work at NASA anymore, but she was initially at NASA as a payload engineer where they send experiments to space and see how they
Mm-hmm.
do. So she was talking about how bigger companies reach out and they pay, NASA to figure out how to get their product to space or how to do this experiment in space. And it's just so interesting because I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
I don't work in the field. I had never heard about this before. So I don't know. I like those situations where I'm like, okay, I actually did learn something. Our listeners will actually get value out of this.
No, and there's been so many guests that you've had on. I'm trying to think of the one that I listened to most recently. The I don't know why I'm blanking on what her career or her name was, but she was getting married soon, and she was talking about becoming a manager in
Yes.
programming.
Caroline. I think Caroline.
Caroline, yes. And I was just learning. I was like, "What is a Scrum? What are we talking about
Yeah.
with a Scrum?" Like, I work at a
Right.
software company. I'm like, "Who is Scrum? What are we scrumming?" So even like small words like that, and trying to figure out, okay, there is this whole person that has this entire career that they're doing all of these things that I never even heard of that are so relevant to my industry, and how I've not heard of them is kind of crazy because although I'm not in engineering anymore, I'm still in a very engineering space or at a tech company that produces coding software for engineers. So still very engineer
Yeah,
focused.
definitely.
So it definitely is words, terms, like people that I'm learning from, and I'm not even in the industry space anymore,
I'm
really.
so
But
glad to hear that.
it is honestly fascinating, and to have a wide range of people also come in and talk with you, and the way that you engage with your guests is so admirable. I am so ADHD that I cut people off all the time. I'm like, actually, I'm going to interject right here right now. And you and Libby do such an excellent job of letting them speak, letting them finish their thought. How do you coordinate that without ever meeting the person, and then also like you have another person that you're communicating with but not with them, you're just there virtually?
Yeah, so it definitely was a learning curve. So we have a Excel or not Excel sheet, a document just like we split the screen and we just have all of the questions we want to ask. So Libby and I
Mm.
kind of just go back and forth. And if anything, if I want to ask two, sometimes I don't know, I ask multiple questions in a row. We just kind of cut any awkward edits out, which is such a relief because
Oh yeah.
one thing coming into this, like I said, I never listen to podcasts. I don't like listening to my voice. I don't think I speak very well compared to other people necessarily. Like I'm not the best speaker. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna overthink it. I'm just gonna, after this conversation, I'm not gonna know what I said probably. It's just one of
I
those
know,
things
I
where you
always
talk
yeah.
and I'm like, oh my God, I talked about wine. I shouldn't have talked about wine. I'm like, keep it professional. But that editing really helps us because there are
Mm-hmm.
some points where like, oh, I'm so sorry, I cut you off. And then the lag has always been an issue. We use Riverside. So
Okay.
sometimes, especially with three people, sometimes we talk over each other, but we can just edit it easily. So that's kind of reassuring. But we kind of just go back and forth. We have our list of topics and questions. Each episode we have with a purpose. So we had someone from HR, so we kind of wanted to talk about interviewing and just her behind the scenes versus actual STEM stuff. So we
Mm-hmm.
kind of just align our questions to that topic.
Yeah, definitely. And with your HR stuff that's a little bit separate than your topics that you normally talk about on the show, which are more STEM oriented, that kind of evolves into on a career, right?
Yes, and a
Okay.
career.
And so what is that? Like, guide me through what you're thinking there. So clearly there must have been a lot of traction with some of the behind the scenes stuff. Like, I know you're posting a lot about LinkedIn and how to utilize your professional tools in the most effective capacities. Is that which approach you're looking to take with on a career?
Definitely. So yeah, I kind of started this on the side after, getting introduced to the content space with my best friend's an engineer, and I just basically focus on all things STEM related. So when I was graduating, I was a senior. I didn't have the best experience with our universities or Miami's, I guess. I was going to try not to call them out, but I didn't have the best experience personally. I was looking for positions and I was looking in the Chicago area. They're based in Ohio.
Hmm.
There wasn't really a very strong, network that they had that they could introduce me to in the Chicago area. They also, didn't help too much specifically with my resume. They were very busy. It was very hard as a university career center to focus fully on each person, on each student.
Hmm.
So, and I just love the career search. I love the job search. Even senior year, junior year, I loved it. I just think of it as a game. I think of it as you sell yourself. You have to make these people like you. It shouldn't be intimidating. So I
Hmm.
kind of wanted to take that approach and just kind of make my own thing from it and work alongside the universities. I'm not bashing any university career center, so I want to be very careful about how I talk about it, but I think it could be stronger. And I have some opinions and thoughts and perspectives, so I just started posting about it, and
Hmm.
I have some ideas in the works, and that is kind of how NA Career started. We're very early, early on,
No,
but
that's awesome. I
yeah, it's
completely agree though. Like it's so tough, especially I know a lot of other people, so I don't think it's specific to any university. I think it's kind of across the board because everybody that I've heard from in their career search said that it was extremely daunting. They didn't know all the proper forms of communicating with people because I think something that you're doing a great job of is really focusing in on LinkedIn because
definitely.
making connections means so much more than just blindly submitting your resume, and going to career fairs and actually speaking with people means so much more than just submitting your application, because you
Yeah.
could have the world's best resume, you really could, but if I talk to you, say for instance, if Lexi, you came up to me at a career fair and we had a great conversation and I have your resume in my hand, I'm like, oh my god, this is the golden ticket, like we have a great engineer on our
Willy
hands.
Wonka.
Yeah, Willy Wonka, here we come. And then someone else just submits it to me and I have no idea any of the background on them. Who are you going to pick? Like, obviously, somebody that you had a connection with, that you, I don't know, like if you've ever heard the airport test, but if you get stuck at a layover in an airport with this individual, would you want to be stuck with this individual? And that's how some people pick who they end up hiring, because you don't really want to, you're spending a good chunk of your week. What is a 40-hour work week for most
Yep,
people? You got to kind of like them. And so that
definitely.
network connection goes a huge, long way.
Definitely. And everyone wants to avoid it. It's always the things that people want to avoid in the job search that actually would help and really benefit and push you farther along in that process. And I don't know, I've just been having fun, with the Canva templates, with just, I don't know, I'm just trying to build that up. I started a blog as well, and it's just honestly fun. I'm just thinking of it that way, and we'll see what comes of it. I have a lot of ideas, but yeah.
That's awesome. And with doing that, how are you allocating time? Is that in addition to your My Best Friends and Engineer podcast and strategy and actual planning? And then is this a separate entity or is it among the similar entity?
I treat it as a separate entity. Okay, so again, I said I have so many ideas,
Hmm.
but these ideas don't mean anything if I don't put them to paper, if I don't get that content out there. So one thing I'm starting actually this week is the second day of it. I've been trying to put at least an hour every
Hmm.
day into drafting a blog post, into spending time on Canva, putting together this media, which seems so silly. And as an engineer, I don't like doing it personally. The same thing. And I noticed that with the podcast. I'm like, no one's listening to us because they don't know about us. You have to market. Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's been getting easier. It's getting more fun. But I've been allocating now an hour at least a day because I'm like, you know what? I want to keep progressing. I put a lot of hours in for work, love my job, but I need to start putting in that time into something that's going to progress, you know, my own endeavors.
Yeah. And it is really, again, a noble act, because getting out there and putting time in and not seeing the return on the investment immediately is so difficult, because it's like, okay, who am I doing this for? Like, is anyone
Exactly.
listening? Is it just me talking to myself? Is it
Yeah,
just an echo in here? What is going on? And it is a sizable chunk of time that you have to kind
definitely.
of go in, make sure that everything makes sense, looks good, and then additionally is to the content level, because you're not going to try and push garbage. Like,
Yep,
no,
exactly.
no one's going to engage with that either. And it's honestly just a waste of your time. So actually is sitting down, thinking about what you're going to put together, what it's going to mean, how it's going to impact what your organization or what you're moving towards is going for. It's a lot to take in. And then on top of that, also trying to work that in with your actual job, socializing, making yourself dinner. It's a task.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's fun because I like the content. So I
Hmm.
like talking about it. So with my blog posts, I've been trying to take things from the workplace and kind
Hmm.
of translate them into this type of content. Not obviously with the confidentiality rules, but it's fun because if there's a situation that frustrates me at work, I'm not going to go gossip with my mom about it. I'm like, let me go write a blog post about it. And I'm like, let me use that outlet and like, let me use it and add value to someone else, or they could read that and think, oh, I never thought of that situation from that perspective. That's interesting to me. So I'm trying to use that outlet instead of just talking about work. I'm like, okay, let's just translate this and use it to our benefit and then create something.
Yeah, and that's called being an engineer, problem
Oh
solving.
yeah.
You know you need an outlet.
Thank you,
Why?
Miami.
Exactly, exactly. You might as well just get a little bang for your buck out of your
Right?
like thoughts about work and wanting to talk with somebody about it. Might as well make a blog post, get some traction, potentially become an influencer.
Yeah. And
So
then
it's
also gossip about it after.
oh
Call
yeah,
my
same,
mom.
dude.
Like this happened. Like,
So I
can you
actually
believe this?
exactly, and it's actually twofold. It's okay, so I just wrote a blog post. Can you check it for errors? And then number two, listen about my day after you're
Yeah,
done
doesn't
reading
this
it.
suck?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. I definitely have done that. I don't talk about work as much on my podcast, but there has been episodes where I specifically talked about switching roles and went into probably too much detail what my last role was like and why I switched over and how you know when it's time to go. But then after that, I've probably to this point, I'm still going too much into deep detail, but I will tell anybody who's willing to listen about that terrible time of my life. The other part of creating a podcast, obviously, there's a lot of time that's involved, but there's a lot of tools. So, what are the assets that you keep in your tool belt? So, I know you said you use Riverside to edit and I think record your videos. How did you arrive at that being the best solution? And what other items do you use to
Right.
record and edit?
Yeah. So we started with Zoom, but
Hmm.
we noticed when editing it, when you try to have the audio or like whoever's speaking, their face pops up. So we were trying to make something where you could have everyone's faces because I don't know, personally, we didn't really want one face as
Yep.
the main video. So we noticed that with
Hmm.
Zoom. So then we went to Zencaster, which you can't even record the video on that one. So we said, okay, no one's
Yep.
gonna watch a little audio, I
Blip.
don't
Yeah.
even blip. And so then we found Riverside, which I don't even know how we got to it, just Googling podcast tools. And I think that is the best platform so far. We have some lag issues, but I definitely recommend it.
Hmm.
And you can see, everyone who's on the call. You can edit it very easier. You can take your clips and just transport them to Canva, do everything you need to do there. So we use Riverside. Editing wise, Canva, I'm a big talked about it so much. I've been paying the premium for years. It's like,
Same, girl. Same.
yeah, like that's worth it. So we use Canva. We tried InShot a little bit. So that one is used for captions on the reels,
Oh, okay.
but we've recently switched to CapCut, which is free and also gives us the captions. So we
Wait,
totally recommend that. CapCut,
what
definitely
is,
look into
so
it.
what do you put the video and it tells you like what caption it should be?
Yeah, it just like does the auto captions. And then you can edit the captions. It's amazing.
Wait, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then you can put stickers and you can like move the stickers. It's awesome. I have had so
Is
much
this
fun on
how
CapCut.
TikTokers do this? Because I recently found out, like, I'm new to the TikTok game and it's honestly kind of pathetic, my lack of knowledge on it. I've tried to talk to my like
No,
16-year
I've
old
seen some
sister
hits
about
from
it.
you. I've seen the bunny
Yeah.
cake. I love it.
I had one major hit and I was like, oh, I'm finally famous. And then my next one, it went like from 500,000 to 40,000 to I think 200. Like
Yeah, it
like
really it
200,
humbles you. They said,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, she's getting too cocky. We get
Yeah, no,
two
seriously.
views."
Yeah, I'm like, okay, never mind. No one wanted to see the peep cake. I get
No, I
it. I
loved it. I
get
loved
it.
it.
With TikTok, they have the stupid little, what is that called? Watermark in the corner of the screen.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
and I have no idea how to remove that. And
Yeah, when you
so,
save videos, I heard there's an update coming out where they are removing that and you can
as they
just save the
should.
video as they should. They, my gosh, how rude of them. But I completely agree. But CapCut, I would definitely look into.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think. And then we just did Amazon Yeti mics, similar to
Nice.
yours. I see right there. Beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, and then what else? And then GarageBand as well was another early software that we used.
Yeah.
But
I
other
think
than that, you
Libby
don't need
said
too
you now
much.
use Audacity, which is what I use. It's free.
Okay.
It's a nice little fun app. It's not very like bells and whistles of
Hmm.
GarageBand, but it does the job.
Yeah, it does the job. And that's all you need,
Exactly.
essentially. Which it's
Yeah.
kind of crazy how you just need all those, just those things, and then you just talk. You just talk and talk and talk, and then people just listen.
Yeah. And honestly, like I don't know about you, how you've felt about the traction that you've gotten from the variety of platforms that you're on, because I know you also have like a Facebook group as well.
Mhm.
And you post a lot in there. You have a book club in there and a lot of like different engaging elements. So, how do you kind of gauge your metrics of success, if you will? Because it's kind of difficult to gauge on your viewership. You can't, at least with my streaming platform, it tells you how many downloads you have, but
Mhm.
not necessarily how many listens you've had. So, how do you kind of gauge your success? And when you're performing your strategy meetings, how do you check and see, okay, here's how we did on this, and here's how this podcast performed, and here's how this social media post performed? Like, how do you take all of those into consideration? I guess is what I'm trying to arrive at.
Definitely. So I think this is kind of ties back to when I mentioned how we bring different perspectives. So I think
Hmm.
Libby is very big on the analytics and looking at, downloads and who, listened, how many people listened, where did they listen from, versus me, I just kind of think it's a success just to get the content out there because I think, we get it out there, people will be able to find us and hopefully start listening.
Hmm.
So personally, I mean, I don't really look at the metrics that much. We haven't really focused on these strategy meetings too much. We kind of just look at the topics and we're like, oh, people really listen to the sorority one. We posted that in September. That's when Sorority Rush happens. Let's try and do something similar. Let's do, STEM gifts during
Hmm.
Christmas. Let's see how that does. So honestly, not a very good answer for you. Not very engineer of us to not look at the analytics. But again, I mean, we bring different perspectives. So I think Libby would probably have a better answer for how she considers those analytics versus
Hmm.
I just think we need to get the content out there and
Yeah.
then we just need to, that's all it is. And you look at these other larger podcasts like Plan Brie, Uncut. I love that one. I don't know if you've listened, but they post about 10 different clips from an episode within 2 days. And
Yep.
it's, some do really well, some don't, but that's just how you do it. And it's just so difficult to, again, we have full-time jobs. We have, Libby has her other brand that she's trying to work with, Libby Beyond the Label. I have a career that I'm trying to build up now. So it's just managing all that, just trying to get it out there is kind of a big focus. So basically, no answer for the analytics for you. Long way to say nothing.
Yeah. No, and honestly, that's completely valid and fair. It is tough because there's so many different platforms and you don't really know, at least for me, like if I were to post a TikTok about my podcast, it would be very apparent to me if I saw a huge uptick in the number of downloads from that TikTok because I've never posted a TikTok about my podcast. So I would only assume that
Definitely.
it's about that. So for me, there's like a direct correlation, but you have so many different platforms. I would kind of guess it would be hard to determine where things are kind of coming from. And I think that you definitely have a good strategy of saying, okay, this is a current event that's occurring. Let's try and get on board with what we can talk about with this and how we can relate it into our field. Because I think that your show does a really great job of incorporating, like you said, those fun little memes. Like I remember the little Miss Engineer one.
Yeah.
Those were a huge hit. And then there's also, like you said, the sorority rush one. And again, with the career building, people are about to graduate, people are looking for jobs right now. There is a lot of current events that play into how things go. So trying to digest everything is definitely difficult, and just kudos to you both for being on top of it and managing it. But with all of these different items like Facebook, Instagram, how do you allocate time for each one of those things?
Facebook, honestly, we have no strategy there. I'm telling you, it's this sounds bad to say we have no strategy, but again, it's kind of just like a fun thing
Yeah.
we're working to build up. And I love seeing when people post in the Facebook group. So I
Hmm.
love the posts where people are like, my company's hiring.
Oh,
This is a link. I love that.
yeah.
So, sometimes we posted, okay, leave us a review, we'll buy you coffee, comment your Venmo. What else do we do? We do the book club. That's a lot of Facebook posts. I posted one random, like, okay, what are your high and lows of the week?
Yeah.
Just so no strategy there. Maybe next strategy meeting, I'll
Well,
say,
I would say
Libby,
that
we're missing a strategy. There's a gap to
no, I
address
would
this.
say that your strategy with Facebook is like a community group. It
Yeah,
seems like all of the posts that you put there are more engaging, whereas the ones on Instagram are kind of informative, if you will, of
yeah,
like, here's the content that we have, like, come and listen. But I think that the Facebook group is fun because it's like a cute little interactive space for all of your listeners to come together and talk more STEM just amongst
definitely.
themselves. Like,
I absolutely love when someone else posts that isn't me
yeah,
and Libby. I'm like, oh, okay, I love when Libby posts, but this is awesome that people are actually using this and actually getting value out of it and actually finding jobs potentially from it. Someone just they're asking for advice. I need security clearance. It's just like very cool, like STEM related questions that
yeah,
you can't really. Sure, you can Google them, but it's more fun when you have a Facebook group and people that you
exactly.
kind of know.
Exactly. And I feel like being female engineers, which I think the podcast does a great job of really bringing to light the lack of female engineers that exist in that space, although they are questions that you can 100% find on Google or even ask ChatGPT nowadays,
Right?
it's
Yeah.
just so much better to have a group of girls that are all like-minded engineers that want to do well in their career, that want to have like the best, and while also at the same time they're all problem solvers. They want to help other people solve their problems. So I think it's really like that is the perfect environment to do that. So although you have no strategy, I beg to differ. I think that you do have a strategy and you just didn't realize it, because having that collaborative group probably means a lot to those people, because they probably don't have many other girls in their classes, and they probably don't have many other people that they can ask, oh, where do I get cute steel-toed boots? Because
Right?
girl,
Xena workwear.
I have really looked at some nasty steel-toed boots. I think I bought my first pair from Walmart, and
Nice.
they had a women's boot, and the
Mhm.
women's boot was like a pink Timberland, if you will.
Yep.
And I was like,
I am envisioning exactly what you're what you're depicting right now.
and I'm like, this is not a woman's boot. This is just a boot that is pink. And this is
Yep.
terribly hideous and heinous. And I will not wear it, but of course I bought it
Yeah.
because I
Because you
don't
have
know.
to.
You have to. Like,
Yeah.
what else am I to do? Shove my
Put your
tootsies
little
into a man's footwear? Like, no, no. I,
dogs away.
yeah, those dogs are barking and howling to get out of
You can
there.
wear like the little covers. I don't know if you've been to any facilities that have like the covers that you slip on. They're just so clunky, terrible. They're just like big plastic toe covers. It's just the toe. And you're like, do like a clown feet. Like
Oh,
that's how I feel. Yeah, terrible. So
wait,
Xena workwear, I'm gonna plug it.
Xena? Oh, I did see Libby post about that once. That's also potentially a space that you could break out into, the engineering wardrobe, because that shit is foul. It
Yeah,
is.
it is. It really is. Trust
Mm.
me, we're thinking about all these ideas. We're like, what else can we do? I'm like, okay, maybe let's strategize what we have.
Let's rein it in. Let's bring it back
Yeah.
to the podcast, see how successful we are. No, but speaking of reining it in, like, you two have done the opposite of that, in the sense that you went to this like really cool conference with, what is it, NASA? Was it NASA? I think it was NASA.
It was well, NASA is there sometimes.
Okay.
It's the area, so it was the Kennedy Space Center.
Okay.
So I know that there was Blue Origin,
Texas?
Florida.
Florida.
Same
Okay.
thing though, right? Right, like
Yeah,
kind of a
sound,
same thing.
.
But Blue Origin was like right across. You could like see their building. It was super
Hmm.
cool. So we were at NASA. But yeah, it was Reinvented Magazine, which is a magazine basically focused on women in STEM, aligning with the theme here. So they put
Love.
on this, gala, and it was awesome to meet the people that we were interviewing in person. So it was a lot of aerospace engineers. So me coming in, med device, they're like, oh, what company do you work for? I was like, not this one, but it's like I'm still related. I'm still, women in STEM. Libby had the same story, but yeah, that was awesome. They're doing it again this year, so we'll be getting our tickets, but essentially anyone can go. And we kind of just knew about it through people we were talking to because we actually have talked to a lot of NASA engineers and
Mhm.
aerospace engineers, and yeah,
Wait, that's so cool. So that was kind of like a work trip for your
yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
Oh
We
my
called it a
gosh,
business trip.
that's actually amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome. And it was so cool to meet so many people that were
Hmm.
just like-minded. I mean, a lot of my friends, they are not in the STEM field. It's
Right.
pretty much everyone I've met at Miami and then everyone I've met through the podcast. So,
That's amazing. And while you also met a bunch of new people, did you come up with new ideas of how to approach potential topics and other areas that you could touch on with the podcast, not necessarily restricted to the podcast, like for instance, some of your other career developments?
so I would say, what we got out of that conference was that we would love to put on an event someday. So we don't know what that looks like. We don't know what that's going to entail. Right now, we're both just very busy, like I said, with everything we want to do.
Hmm.
So I think once we narrow that down, I just think having everyone in that room that are focused on spreading the same ideas and talking about the same topics, I think that just solidified the fact that this is so cool. This we could make this into something awesome and, maybe bring in people who aren't in the STEM field right now, maybe bring in high schoolers or college students and maybe do something of that accord. But yeah, I mean, not too many solidified ideas, but definitely some blurry ideas in the future. But I have no idea when we'll be able to fit that in.
Yeah, I
But
mean, the
stay
world is
tuned,
your
guys.
oyster. Yeah. You have so much opportunity to do things, and especially, I don't know, Miami's alumni network in Chicago is huge. And I'm not remembering where Libby is from, but at least like being able to have like some sort of camaraderie with some Miami people and bringing them in and potentially connecting with the school. Because additionally, I know that you did a little, I want to say TED Talk. For Miami students. It wasn't a TED Talk. I don't know what better to call it, but you did speak to Miami students. So what was that like? And did they find you through your podcast?
Yes, actually they did, which is awesome. So yeah, there was one career panel in the Chicago area for Miami, which was super interesting because I was talking to incoming students about again my life and my experience, and again I was just kind of faced with that thought of do they really care? Will they get any value out of it? And I think with that, you just have to put it out there. And if they don't listen, they don't listen. At least you tried. I think through the podcast, one thing I've learned is to just start thinking about things in as an experiment.
Hmm.
Not will I succeed or will I fail at this, but what's going to happen? Let's see what happens. Let's not set necessarily a goal because then that gets you, or personally me, I don't know, I get very oh my gosh, if I don't do well, this is going to be terrible. And I'm going to think about it for months. But about, okay, let's just do it and see how it goes and see if people are interested. So I kind of took that and just talked to these students about my experience, talked to them about why I would recommend Miami. And then there was another one similar. It was with Society of Women Engineers at Miami. It was just a panel. So I was moderating the panel, so I didn't talk too much. But again, it was just a new experience. I'm like, am I a good panel moderator? Who knows? Let's learn from this and let's just be better next time. So
Yeah.
same thing with this. This is my first interview, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have never, I was gonna say that in the beginning, but I forgot. But again, like let's do this and see how it goes and how I can be more enticing next time.
Me every single time. I'm like, okay, let me listen to this back and what did I do
Right?
wrong? How we can improve?
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
I definitely won't listen to this, but I also don't listen to podcast episodes. Like sometimes when Libby is like, okay, what do you think about the audio? She doesn't listen either. And I
Yeah.
think that's just something in the beginning where we're like, I can't listen to myself talk. I'm like, okay, if people keep listening, that's good. I mean, obviously we do listen at some points. Like it's not like we're
Oh
just
yeah.
throwing it out there without editing it. But I don't sit there and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go on a run. Let me listen to myself talk.
Yeah. You see, I'm the opposite. And that's probably like the inner narcissist in me, but I don't mind listening to my voice back. And I think that's why it's easy for me to individually go in and edit it, rather than outsourcing that to somebody else. But then again, like after I edit it, I listen to it all back and I'm like, wow, does that sound good? Like, did I edit this part right? And then I try and figure out, like, okay, do I need to go back and fix this section? And you know what? I do it on runs. And it is really so
I
wait,
love
no,
it.
this is so embarrassing. So, oh my gosh, tying back to our beginning comments, my I sent a screenshot to my old coworkers that my old boss had gotten on Snapchat, and I sent it to them. And here's the push notification.
Again,
There's the push notification, but there's my podcast.
I love it.
And
That's
it's
so
like
funny.
halfway through the episode, and my coworkers are like listening to your own podcast, greater than, greater than, greater than. I was like, someone's got to pump these
Yeah.
numbers up.
No, that's all. And maybe I'll get to that point one day. I just think, I mean, honestly, it's just a win in itself that I'm actually getting out there and posting all this stuff in general. I just try to avoid thinking that people can actually look at my face and like see me, on these reels and stuff.
Hmm.
But maybe I'll get there. And once I get there, I'll let you know. I'll say, oh my God, I'm listening to my podcast.
You'll send me a screenshot, and it'll just
Yeah.
be my best friend's an engineer at the top of the
I was
screen.
like, I was so funny at this point of the podcast.
I
It's
really peaked
awesome.
here, peak
Yeah.
comedy right
It's a
here.
good comment by me.
Yeah, no, noted. We'll reuse that one. So going with that line of thinking and being like, okay, I don't want to listen to myself. How do you kind of take feedback from other people? I'm assuming, I don't know, like what sort of feedback that you've gotten from people, whether it's been positive, neutral, negative. How have you received feedback and how do you use that to your advantage to either make the show better or try and figure out?
Definitely. So I think my main source of feedback right now is Libby,
Mm-hmm,
herself. I think so far we haven't really gotten any bad feedback. It's not like we're talking about anything that's groundbreaking. We're not saying
mm-hmm,
these really hot or cold topics. I don't even know, or cold takes or hot takes. We're just talking about our experiences and we're not really trying to bash anyone.
mm-hmm,
We're talking. So it's nothing crazy. So it's
mm-hmm.
nothing that someone hears and they immediately are ignited. They're like, oh my God, I need to comment on this. And like this was
Yep.
so crazy. The one feedback, I think that it's so funny. It was right when we announced that we were gonna do this. So we have our Apple podcast
Mm-hmm.
page and we have a 1-star review, no words. And so I asked Libby, and I said, so which ex-boyfriend do you think did that, yours or mine? Who do you think? I was like, I think that's like the worst feedback we've gotten. And I'm like, it was like right when we started, I was like, okay, so
Mm.
who do you think? Like, which ones? Other than that, I just ask her straight up. I am very good. It probably doesn't seem like that since I'm saying all of this overthinking stuff and like, oh, I
Mm-hmm,
don't like to listen to my voice. I am very big on constructive feedback, both
mm-hmm,
in life, in the workplace, anywhere. So I just straight up ask her, I'm like, do you think that was funny? What do you think I can improve on? And I think she just thinks it's so funny about how much feedback I'm asking for. 'Cause she's like, you're fine. But I don't know. Again, I just want to see how other people are perceiving me. Like I can put off and try to put off this persona. If it's not
mm-hmm.
coming across that way, then we're not achieving our goals and kind of doing what we intended to. So other than that, everyone is very nice. They have no mean comments. So if you have any feedback, let me know.
No, I think it's amazing. I think it's great. I am so glad that you're getting out there and putting out good content that's because I feel like you're right. It's people are often quick to take to social media or to the creative sphere and say these hot takes just to get traction.
Mhm.
And I think that it's really understated the value that people like you and Libby have in bringing just you bring your opinions, but they're not hot takes or cold takes or
Mhm.
anything like that. They're just your opinions and what your thoughts
Yeah.
are, and talking constructively about a certain topic and trying to bring light and education rather than trying to be like, how do I get as many views as I possibly can because I'm saying this controversial thing, which I think
Definitely.
is very
Yeah.
popular right now.
So popular. Sometimes I'm like, let's think about something crazy and just start talking about it,
Let's just start talking about how global warming is not real.
right? Yeah, I think, with these women, all this women in STEM content in general, I think people usually correlate this type of content with women just bashing men. They're
Mm-hmm.
saying men treat women horribly in the workplace, specifically in the STEM world. That's not what we're trying to do here.
Mm-hmm.
We both try to kind of stray away from that because it doesn't happen as much anymore. It
Right.
really doesn't. People try to push that narrative and they try to victimize themselves, but that's not what it is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And start talking about the narrative of what's actually going on instead of trying to make all these women angry at all the men that we work with, for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're just kind of neutral. We're just very, just like to talk, talking with your best friend every week. We're like, okay,
Yeah,
what do you got on the agenda today? What happened?
I love it. And that's pretty much how you start off every episode too. You're like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah,
Which is fun to
exactly.
listen to, even though it's not necessarily work related always. It is fun to like get a little insight onto who you and Libby are and understand that you are people outside of like podcast hosts and engineers.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm like, you guys can fast forward if you don't want to hear. But I'm going to
But
tell you
we're
about
going
my
to talk
road
about
trip.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And then one of the other things I wanted to talk about. So obviously you're talking pretty heavily about work and what you do. Have you had any issues with that in the workspace and trying to make sure that the two are aligned and that you're sharing things that are not too personal to work, but also sharing enough that it's not vague on the episodes?
Definitely. I feel like I do a good job about that. I think I'm very, very nervous about it. I really like my position and my company, so I don't want to mess that up at all. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think before we talk about things
Mm-hmm.
where, information could get accidentally added.
Right.
Um, I haven't had any issues thus far. I don't know who listens to me at work. I go by Lexi, online,
Yep.
but I go by Alexis in the workplace. And one time where I was on my toes was when I introduced myself to someone, and I said, "Oh, I'm Alexis," and they go, "Oh, Lexi." I was like, "No," I was like, "Just call me Alexis."
No.
I was like, "No, no, no." And then so I don't know if they just knew it, like Alexi is a nickname for Alexis, or maybe I don't know, heard something. But I was like, oh my gosh, do you know? It's like Montana. I was like, do you know
No.
what I do in my free time?
The wig
So
is off. It's
yeah,
been
the wig.
snatched.
But
No,
yeah, so far, no issues, no concerns.
it's a tough dichotomy to try and balance in the amount that you're willing to share versus the amount that your listeners want to hear about, and trying to figure out, okay, what can I put out there that also looks good on me and also makes a
Definitely.
reflection of a positive organization that I work for and a positive workspace and all of that. So
Definitely.
definitely very tough to balance. So shout out to you for doing that. What advice would you give to people that are looking to start a podcast or looking to start getting into influencing on social media or via social media?
I would say just do it. Just start putting content out there and think of it, like I mentioned earlier, as an experiment. Okay, if this doesn't work, let's try and, go at it from a different stance. And I think that really helped me personally. I think one thing that really deterrs people from posting and doing what they're actually passionate about, whether that's starting a business or passion project, it's just what other people will think of you. And that was definitely something that I struggled with. But at the end of the day, I thought the people that I'm worried about are the people that I have muted and unfollowed on social media. So they don't essentially exist anymore in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I ever hold myself back from what I could achieve from the opinions of people that I don't even want to see anymore on social media?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say just start, and if you're still uncomfortable, you can stop. You can delete it, you can archive things. It might not go away forever, but you can get out of it. But you're going to regret not trying, at least, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was the hardest thing for me too. I did a vlog in college, which that was tough because you're recording yourself And it's just a lot. I think with the podcast, it's a little safer. Like you can hide
Mhm.
behind the mic and it's just your voice. But then also trying to tie in the reels and stuff, that gets a little bit more convoluted.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was like, okay, that's a little bit better. But there are people that do say negative, not negative things, but kind of like poke fun at me for having a podcast. So like, what are you talking about that's so interesting? Nothing. Really, it's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But people
But
listen.
yeah, but
And
if
and I'm putting it out there and people are listening and they're coming back and they want more. And I'm
mhm.
interviewing all these people. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's like that's the point. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is what I do for fun. Why do you need to say something negative about it? Like, it's
Yeah,
fun. It's just a
exactly.
passion project. It's what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's awesome. And I'm super glad to have you on. That's amazing. And I truly am like, it is so impressive to me, especially being someone who's also in, I'm going to say it again until I get this coined. It is the creative sphere. It
Yeah.
is a difficult spot, like space to be in. It is pretty tough in the sense that if you don't get feedback, and I'm very much so like you, feedback, validation kind of makes sense, like feedback, validation,
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah, right.
Um,
I'm like, tell me what I'm
so
doing wrong and I'll fix it. Like just black or white. Like what do you like? What don't you like? Let me think about it and then let me progress.
yeah, exactly.
Very
Like
engineer mindset.
like 100%. And it is a tough space to be in. And additionally, like trying to put that in with work and also trying to figure out how do we continue to progress this? Because I am completely with you. Like, how do we get this to go forward? What's the next step? Do we create events? Do we make a blog post? Do we make on a career? Like, what comes next? And that's it's all so exciting, and I'm so happy for you that you're so passionate about it, and you can tell how passionate both you
Oh,
and Libby are about it, and it's so amazing. And you've had great episodes. So everyone, go and listen to My Best Friend's an Engineer. It's streaming on pod or all your normal podcasting
yes,
services.
everywhere.
And it's a great show and it's good fun. Even if you're not an engineer, it's good to just listen to and get some insight on professionalism as well as potentially even just how to interact daily with new jargon. So,
New jargon, all the jargon.
all the
Payloads?
jargon.
What, Scrum?
Payloads, Scrum.
Is that what
Yes, dude, Scrum to me, I was like,
learn new vocabulary.
exactly. It's good. It's good to learn. It's good to learn, people. Be a constant learner. But yeah, so thanks so much for coming on.